Why We Sleep by Matthew Walker. Introduction. Have you ever wondered what it takes to be considered too dangerous for the Guinness Book of World Records? Think about that for a moment. This is the same organization that happily documents people jumping from the edge of space, lifting trucks with their teeth, or holding their breath for over 20 minutes. These are feats that push the human body to its absolute limits, flirting with disaster for the sake of a record. And yet, there is one record they will no longer recognize. One challenge they have deemed so dangerous, so catastrophically harmful to a person's health, that they have officially banned it. It isn't a death-defying stunt. It isn't an act of extreme physical endurance. It's simply trying to stay awake for as long as possible. The scientific evidence is so overwhelming, so damning, that the guardians of world records concluded that encouraging someone to deprive themselves of sleep is to encourage a slow form of self-destruction. This single fact is perhaps the most powerful introduction to the book we're exploring today, Why We Sleep, Unlocking the Power of Sleep and Dreams by the brilliant neuroscientist, Dr. Matthew Walker. This book isn't just a collection of interesting facts, it's a desperate, passionate, and scientifically backed plea to humanity. It reveals a silent sleep loss epidemic that has swept across the globe, and it uncovers the catastrophic consequences we are all facing because of it. Dr. Walker, a professor of neuroscience at UC Berkeley and a former professor of psychiatry at Harvard, has spent decades researching this mysterious third of our lives. He's not just a scientist, he's become something of a sleep evangelist, and for good reason. His work reveals that we have, in the space of a single century, completely abandoned our biological need for a full night's sleep. And this abandonment is the root cause of so many of our modern ailments, from heart disease and Alzheimer's to anxiety and obesity. Today, we're going to pull back the curtain on this forgotten pillar of life. I promise you that by the end of our journey, you will never look at your pillow the same way again. You will understand that sleep is not a luxury, it is not an indulgence, and it is most certainly not a sign of laziness. It is your life support system. It is nature's most powerful effort yet at fighting death. It is, quite simply, your superpower. And today, you're going to learn how to unlock it. Book summary. To truly understand the power of sleep, we have to start with a question that puzzled scientists for millennia. From an evolutionary standpoint, sleep makes no sense at all. Think about it. When an animal is asleep, it's at its most vulnerable. It can't gather food. It can't find a mate. It can't protect its young from predators. On every level, sleep looks like the single biggest mistake evolution has ever made. As one famous sleep scientist, Alan Rechtschaffen, once said, "If sleep does not serve an absolutely vital function, then it is the biggest mistake the evolutionary process has ever made." And yet, every single animal species studied to date sleeps. From the fruit fly to the great white shark, from the hummingbird to the blue whale. Sleep has persisted, against all logical odds, since the very beginning of life on this planet. This tells us something profound. The benefits of sleep must be so enormous that they far outweigh all of the obvious dangers. For centuries, we asked, why do we sleep? As if there was one single answer. We thought maybe it was to save energy, or to let our bodies rest. But the truth, as Dr. Matthew Walker reveals, is infinitely more complex and beautiful. It turns out, there isn't a single major organ or process in your brain or body that isn't powerfully enhanced by sleep, or devastatingly impaired when you don't get enough. So, how does this nightly miracle happen? How does your body know when it's time to power down? It's all controlled by two powerful, distinct forces. The first force is your internal 24-hour clock, known as the circadian rhythm. Deep inside your brain, there's a tiny master clock called the suprachiasmatic nucleus. It's no bigger than the head of a pin, but it's the grand conductor of your life's biological symphony. It controls your daily rhythms of waking and sleeping, your mood, your energy, your body temperature, and even your appetite. For a long time, we thought this clock was simply following the sun. But in 1938, a professor named Nathaniel Kleitman performed a radical experiment. He and his assistant took up residence deep inside Mammoth Cave in Kentucky, a place so deep that no sunlight could reach them. They wanted to know what would happen to their sleep patterns when they were cut off from the daily cycle of light and dark. Did they descend into random chaos, sleeping and waking at all hours? Not at all. They maintained a remarkably consistent rhythm. But here's the fascinating part. Their internal day wasn't exactly 24 hours. It was slightly longer, around 24 hours and 15 minutes. This revealed a crucial secret. We all have an innate biological rhythm, but it's not perfect. It runs a little long. What, then, keeps us locked into a precise 24-hour cycle? Daylight. Sunlight acts like a finger that resets our slightly inaccurate internal watch every single morning, winding it back to a perfect 24 hours. Daylight is the single most important signal for your master clock. Now, this internal clock doesn't just tell you when to be awake or asleep. It creates your chronotype, whether you are a morning lark or a night owl. About 40% of the population are larks, who love to wake up at dawn and function best in the morning. About 30% are owls, who naturally prefer to stay up late and wake up late. The other 30% are somewhere in between. This isn't a choice or a matter of laziness. It's written into your DNA. If you're a night owl, it's likely one of your parents is too. Sadly, our society is deeply biased against night owls. The standard 9-to-5 work schedule, and even earlier school start times, forces owls to live out of sync with their natural rhythm. This leads to chronic sleep deprivation, and as a result, night owls suffer higher rates of depression, diabetes, cancer, and heart disease. So how does your master clock communicate its daily signal to the rest of your body? It uses a messenger molecule, a hormone you've probably heard of, melatonin. Melatonin is often called the hormone of darkness. As dusk falls and the light fades, your brain's clock tells a tiny gland, the pineal gland, to release melatonin into your bloodstream. Melatonin acts like a powerful bullhorn, shouting a clear message to every corner of your brain and body. It's dark. It's dark. It's time for sleep to begin. Think of sleep as a 100-meter race. Melatonin is the official who fires the starting pistol. It governs when the race begins, but it doesn't participate in the race itself. That's why melatonin supplements aren't a powerful sleeping aid for most people. They only help to time the start of sleep, not generate it. So, that's the first system, the 24-hour circadian rhythm, which creates a daily cycle of alertness and sleepiness. But there's a second force at play, and it's building up in your brain right now as you listen to my voice. This force is called sleep pressure, and it's driven by a chemical called adenosine. From the moment you wake up in the morning, adenosine begins to accumulate in your brain. The longer you're awake, the more it builds up. Think of it as a chemical barometer, constantly measuring how long you've been awake. As the concentration of adenosine rises, so does your desire to sleep. This is sleep pressure. After about 12 to 16 hours of being awake, the pressure becomes so high that the urge to sleep is almost irresistible. When you finally sleep, your brain gets a chance to clear away all of that adenosine. After a full 8 hours, the slate is wiped clean, and you wake up feeling refreshed. But, you can artificially mute this signal of adenosine. You can trick your brain into feeling awake, even when the sleep pressure is sky high. And you do it with the most widely used psychoactive stimulant in the world, caffeine. Caffeine is the second most traded commodity on the planet, after oil. And here's how it works its magic. In your brain, adenosine has specific landing spots, or receptors, that it plugs into to signal sleepiness. Caffeine has a similar shape to adenosine, so it can fit into these same receptors. But instead of activating them and making you sleepy, caffeine blocks them. It's like sticking your fingers in your ears to block out a sound. Caffeine hijacks these receptors, effectively masking the sleepiness signal from adenosine. The result? You feel alert and awake, even though the adenosine is still building up in the background. The problem is caffeine's persistence. It has a half-life of about 5 to 7 hours. This means if you have a cup of coffee at 7:30 in the evening, by 1:30 in the morning, 50% of that caffeine is still circulating in your brain. You're only halfway through clearing it out. That's more than enough to disrupt your sleep, making it lighter and more fragmented. Many people fail to connect the bad night of sleep they just had with the cup of coffee they drank 10 hours earlier. And what happens when the caffeine finally wears off? The infamous caffeine crash. While caffeine was blocking the receptors, adenosine didn't stop building up. It was all still there, waiting. Once your liver finally breaks down the caffeine, that wall comes crashing down. You're suddenly hit with all the sleepiness you would have felt hours ago, plus all the extra adenosine that accumulated in the meantime. The urge to sleep becomes overwhelming. The power of caffeine as a drug is astonishing. In the 1980s, NASA scientists gave spiders various drugs and observed the webs they built. Spiders on LSD, speed, and marijuana built distorted but recognizable webs. The spider on caffeine, however, was completely incapable of constructing anything remotely functional. The web was a chaotic, useless mess. It's a stark visual reminder that caffeine is a powerful substance, and it's the only addictive drug we readily give to our children. So, you have these two systems, the 24-hour circadian rhythm process C creating a wave of alertness, and the sleep pressure from adenosine process S steadily building. Normally, these two forces work in beautiful harmony. Your desire to sleep is greatest when the gap between them is widest, late at night, when sleep pressure is at its peak and the circadian alerting signal is at its lowest. So, you finally drift off. But what actually happens in your brain during the night? It's not just a state of quiet rest. It's an incredibly active and complex journey through different stages of sleep, a journey we repeat every 90 minutes. This journey is the architecture of sleep. There are two main types of sleep, non-REM, or non-rapid eye movement sleep, and REM, or rapid eye movement sleep. When you first fall asleep, you enter the light stages of non-REM sleep. Then, you descend into the deepest stages, stages 3 and 4, also known as slow-wave sleep. If you were to look at the brain waves during this stage, you'd see long, powerful, rhythmic waves, like a slow, deep drum beat. This is a state of incredible neural synchrony, where thousands of brain cells are firing together in perfect harmony. This deep non-REM sleep is a time for profound restoration. It's during this phase that your brain does its most critical file transfer work. It takes new memories from a fragile short-term storage area, the hippocampus, which is like a USB stick with limited capacity, and moves them to a more permanent and safe long-term storage site in the cortex. This process locks in new learning and, just as importantly, clears out space in your hippocampus so you can learn new things the next day. But then, after a period of deep non-REM sleep, your brain does something remarkable. It shifts into a completely different state, REM sleep. The brain waves during REM sleep look almost identical to the brain waves of being wide awake. In fact, some parts of your brain are up to 30% more active during REM sleep than when you're awake. This is why it's also called paradoxical sleep, a brain that looks awake, yet a body that is fast asleep. And it's during REM sleep that we have our most vivid, bizarre, and emotional dreams. Now, why would the brain paralyze the body during this stage? to prevent you from acting out your dreams. Imagine frantically running from a monster or getting into a fight while you're actually in your bedroom. Wise, then, of Mother Nature to create this physiological straitjacket so that your mind can dream safely. The 90-minute cycle between non-REM and REM sleep repeats throughout the night. But the ratio of the two changes dramatically. In the first half of the night, your sleep is dominated by deep non-REM sleep, with very little REM. In the second half, especially in the early morning hours, that balance flips. Your sleep is dominated by REM, with very little deep non-REM. Dr. Walker uses a beautiful analogy to explain this. Think of memory consolidation as creating a sculpture. Deep non-REM sleep, which comes first, is like the initial, extensive carving of the raw block of clay, removing all the unnecessary material. REM sleep, which comes later, is like the fine detail work, etching intricate features and connecting different elements together. This lopsided architecture of sleep has a critical implication that most of us miss. If you go to bed at midnight but have to wake up at 6 a.m. for an early start, you're not just losing 2 hours of sleep, which is 25% of your 8-hour night. Because REM sleep is concentrated in the early morning, you might be losing 60%, 70%, or even 90% of your total REM sleep for that night. You are shortchanging your brain of a fundamentally different kind of sleep, with fundamentally different benefits. And this brings us to the dark side of the story. What are the consequences when this intricate, life-sustaining process is disrupted? What happens when we don't get the sleep we need? The effects are immediate and they are devastating, first on your brain, and then on your body. Let's start with the brain. The first thing to go, even with a small amount of sleep loss, is your concentration. This is what leads to the most visible and fatal consequence of sleep loss in our society: drowsy driving. Every hour in the United States, someone dies in a traffic accident due to a fatigue-related error. That's more than alcohol and drugs combined. Most of these aren't caused by people falling fully asleep at the wheel. They are caused by momentary lapses in attention called microsleeps. For just a few seconds, your brain goes offline. It becomes blind to the outside world. If you're traveling at 65 miles per hour, in those few seconds, you've traveled the length of a football field. In a landmark study, researchers took healthy adults and restricted them to different amounts of sleep for 2 weeks. One group got 8 hours, one got 6, and one got 4. The group that got 8 hours maintained perfect performance. But the groups on 6 and 4 hours showed a steady decline. After just 10 days of sleeping only 6 hours a night, their performance was as bad as someone who had been awake for 24 hours straight. The group on 4 hours of sleep hit this level in just 4 days. But here is the most terrifying finding of all. When asked to rate their own performance, the sleep-deprived participants were completely unaware of how badly they were doing. They thought they were functioning just fine. This is the insidious nature of sleep deprivation. You do not know how sleep-deprived you are when you are sleep-deprived. Your brain's self-assessment is useless. It's like a drunk person at a bar insisting they're fine to drive. After being awake for 19 hours, you are as cognitively impaired as someone who is legally drunk. Beyond attention, sleep loss wages war on your emotional brain. Without sleep, a key emotion center, the amygdala, the brain's hub for anger and rage, becomes hyperactive, over 60% more reactive than in a well-rested brain. At the same time, the prefrontal cortex, the logical, rational, CEO part of your brain that keeps your emotions in check, goes quiet. The result is a brain that is all emotional gas pedal and no brake. You become emotionally irrational and reactive. We all know this feeling. A small frustration that you'd normally brush off becomes a source of intense anger. This is why sleep deprivation is linked to a higher risk of major psychiatric conditions like depression, anxiety, and even suicidality. Then there's learning and memory. Many students believe the best way to prepare for an exam is to pull an all-nighter. This, Dr. Walker's research proves, is like trying to pour water into a full glass. As we discussed, the hippocampus is your brain's short-term memory inbox. When it's full, you can't add new information. Deep sleep acts as a file transfer service, moving memories from the hippocampus to long-term storage, clearing out that inbox for the next day. If you don't sleep, that inbox stays full. In one study, a sleep-deprived group had a 40% deficit in their ability to make new memories compared to a group that got a full night of sleep. MRI scans showed that the hippocampus in the sleepless brains had effectively shut down. No new experiences were getting in. By pulling an all-nighter, you are not just failing to learn, you are actively blocking your brain's ability to learn. Perhaps the most alarming link of all is between sleep loss and Alzheimer's disease. Alzheimer's is associated with the buildup of a toxic protein in the brain called amyloid beta. The brain has a brilliant cleanup crew, called the glymphatic system, that clears out this metabolic waste. And here's the crucial part: this system is primarily active when you are in deep non-REM sleep. During deep sleep, the brain cells actually shrink, opening up more space between them for the cerebrospinal fluid to wash through and collect the waste, including amyloid beta. So, if you're not getting enough deep sleep, your brain sewage system can't do its job. The toxins build up. This creates a vicious cycle. The more amyloid builds up, the more it attacks the very parts of the brain that generate deep sleep, preventing them from doing their cleanup job. Insufficient sleep is now recognized as one of the most significant lifestyle factors determining whether or not you will develop Alzheimer's disease. The devastation doesn't stop with the brain. Every single system in your body suffers. Your cardiovascular system is put under immense strain. Just one night of reduced sleep will speed up your heart rate and increase your blood pressure. Routinely sleeping less than 6 hours a night is associated with a 200% increased risk of having a heart attack or stroke in your lifetime. We can see this in a dramatic, global experiment that happens twice a year: daylight saving time. In the spring, when we lose an hour of sleep, hospitals report a 24% spike in heart attacks the following day. In the fall, when we gain an hour, heart attacks fall by 21%. That's how fragile and sensitive your body is to even the smallest loss of sleep. What about your metabolism? Sleeping less than 7 hours a night disrupts blood sugar levels so profoundly that it can classify you as pre-diabetic. The cells of your body become less responsive to insulin, the hormone that manages blood sugar. And then there's weight gain. Short sleep messes with two critical appetite-controlling hormones, leptin and ghrelin. Leptin is the hormone that says, "I'm full." Ghrelin says, "I'm hungry." When you are sleep deprived, your body produces less leptin and more ghrelin. So, your brain is getting the signal that you're starving, even if you've just eaten a huge meal. In studies, people who were sleep restricted ate, on average, 300 to 500 extra calories per day. And it's not just that you eat more, it's what you eat. Cravings for sugary, salty, and carbohydrate-heavy junk food skyrocket. The rational, decision-making part of your brain is weakened, while the primal, reward-driven parts are amplified. You become a slave to your impulses. The damage continues. Your reproductive system takes a hit. In one study, young, healthy men who were limited to 5 hours of sleep for just 1 week saw a significant drop in their testosterone levels. The drop was so dramatic it effectively aged them by 10 to 15 years in terms of hormonal health. For women, chronic sleep loss is linked to disruptions in the menstrual cycle and difficulties with fertility. And then, there's your immune system. Sleep is like an elite special forces unit for your body's defenses. One of the most powerful weapons in this army is a type of immune cell called natural killer cells. They are brilliant at identifying and destroying dangerous foreign invaders, like cancer cells. In a shocking experiment, researchers found that after just a single night of only 4 hours of sleep, there was a 70% reduction in the activity of these critical, cancer-fighting immune cells. This is why a lack of sleep is now strongly linked to an increased risk for numerous types of cancer, including bowel, prostate, and breast cancer. The evidence is so strong that the World Health Organization has classified any form of nighttime shift work as a probable carcinogen. The assault even reaches the very core of your biological identity, your DNA. A week of sleeping 6 hours a night has been shown to distort the activity of over 700 of your genes. Genes related to inflammation, stress, and cardiovascular disease were switched on. Genes related to immune response and metabolic health were switched off. Lack of sleep is, in essence, a form of genetic engineering you perform on yourself every night. It's a bleak picture. But it also illuminates the incredible, life-giving power that a full night of sleep holds. If sleep loss can cause this much damage, then getting enough sleep must be the ultimate form of preventative medicine. And that brings us to the most magical part of the night, the world of dreams. For a long time, dreams were seen as a mere byproduct of REM sleep, like the heat from a light bulb, an unintended consequence, not the main function. But we now know this is profoundly untrue. Dreaming serves critical functions, functions that REM sleep alone cannot accomplish. The first is dreaming as overnight therapy. When you experience something emotional, that memory has two parts, the information itself, and the emotion attached to it. It's the emotion that makes a memory painful or stressful. REM sleep, and the dreaming that occurs within it, has a remarkable ability to process these emotional memories. Here's how. REM sleep is the only time during the 24-hour day when your brain is completely free of the anxiety-triggering chemical, noradrenaline. It's a neurochemically calm, safe environment. During dreams, your brain reactivates emotional memories, but it does so in this stress-free state. This process acts like a nocturnal soothing balm. It allows the brain to strip the painful emotional charge away from the memory. You keep the memory, but you lose the emotional sting. This is why time is said to heal all wounds. It's not time itself, it's the time spent in dream sleep that provides emotional convalescence. We can see this breakdown in PTSD, where patients are plagued by nightmares. Their brains have pathologically high levels of noradrenaline, which prevents them from having this therapeutic REM sleep. They get stuck in a loop, forced to relive the trauma with the original emotions still attached. The second function of dreaming is creativity and problem solving. While deep non-REM sleep is about strengthening individual memories, REM sleep is about making connections. It's informational alchemy. Your brain takes all the new information you've gathered and starts colliding it with your entire back catalog of life experiences. It's in this bizarre, hyper-associative state that the brain forges novel links between seemingly unrelated ideas. It steps back and sees the bigger picture, extracts the gist, and finds solutions that our logical, waking brain could never see. This is why you are always told to sleep on a problem. History is filled with stories of dream-inspired breakthroughs. The Russian chemist Dmitry Mendeleev struggled for years to find the organizational logic of the elements. Frustrated, he fell asleep at his desk and dreamt of the elements arranging themselves in a perfect table. He woke up and wrote down the periodic table, one of the cornerstones of modern chemistry. Paul McCartney woke up one morning with the entire melody for the song Yesterday fully formed in his head. He had dreamt it. Science has proven this isn't just a collection of anecdotes. In experiments, people who have had a night of sleep, rich with REM, are up to 300% more likely to find creative solutions to difficult problems compared to those who have remained awake. The waking brain is like looking through a telescope the wrong way. It has a narrow, focused view. The dreaming brain turns the telescope around, giving it a wide-angle lens to see the entire constellation of stored knowledge. So we have this incredible, nightly gift. A biological imperative that heals our emotional wounds, enhances our creativity, fortifies our immune system, balances our metabolism, and saves our memories. Why on earth, then, have we abandoned it? What in our modern world is so aggressively stopping us from sleeping? Dr. Walker identifies 5 key culprits. First, constant electric light, and specifically, blue LED light. Before electricity, we lived in sync with the sun. The setting sun would trigger the release of melatonin, preparing us for sleep. Now, our world is flooded with artificial light late into the evening. Blue light, the kind that emanates from our phones, tablets, and computer screens, is particularly powerful at suppressing melatonin. Using an iPad for 2 hours before bed can block melatonin release by over 20%, delaying your ability to fall asleep. It's tricking your brain into thinking it's still daytime. Second, regularized temperature. To initiate sleep, your body's core temperature needs to drop by about 2 to 3 degrees Fahrenheit. This is why you'll often stick a foot or a hand out from under the covers. Your hands and feet are highly efficient radiators for shedding body heat. But we now live in homes with constant, comfortable temperatures. We fight against this natural thermal cycle that our bodies need. A simple trick? A hot bath before bed. It sounds counterintuitive, but it works because of the massive drop in body temperature you experience when you get out, signaling to your brain that it's time for sleep. Third is caffeine, which we've discussed. It keeps us wired and disrupts sleep quality long after we feel its effects. Fourth is alcohol. The nightcap is one of the most misunderstood sleep aids. Alcohol is a sedative. It knocks you out, but it does not produce natural sleep. The brainwave state it induces is more like a light anesthesia. Worse, alcohol fragments your sleep, causing you to wake up repeatedly throughout the night, even if you don't remember it. And most destructively, it is one of the most powerful suppressors of REM sleep we know of. And the fifth culprit is a legacy of our industrial past, the alarm clock, and its evil accomplice, the snooze button. No other species artificially terminates sleep. When you are jolted awake by an alarm, your body suffers a spike in blood pressure and a shock acceleration in heart rate. It's a cardiovascular assault. Hitting the snooze button means you inflict that assault again, and again, and again. We have created a world that is fundamentally at war with our biology. We are squeezed between the vice grips of an electrified night and early morning start times, bathed in constant temperatures, and fueled by caffeine and alcohol. We have divorced ourselves from the natural world, and in doing so, we have divorced ourselves from the one thing that keeps us healthy within it. The silent sleep loss epidemic is the greatest public health challenge we face in the 21st century. But unlike so many other medical problems, the solution isn't hidden behind a complex new drug or an expensive technology. It's simple. It's free. And it's waiting for you, tonight. Commentary. As we step back and look at the vast landscape of evidence that Matthew Walker has laid out, one central, undeniable truth emerges. Sleep is not an optional lifestyle luxury. It is a non-negotiable biological necessity. It is your life support system, and by neglecting it, we are actively choosing a shorter, less healthy, and less vibrant life. The most powerful, and perhaps most unsettling, lesson from Why We Sleep is how quickly and completely we have forgotten this truth. In our modern culture, we wear our lack of sleep like a badge of honor. We boast about pulling all-nighters, about surviving on 4 or 5 hours. We see sleep as a sign of weakness, an enemy of productivity. We have stigmatized the very thing that makes us stronger, smarter, healthier, and happier. Why has this happened? I think it's because the consequences of sleep loss are not always immediate and dramatic. It's not like a car crash or a sudden illness. It's a slow, silent erosion. It's the gradual decline of your health, the slow fogging of your mind, the imperceptible fraying of your emotional stability. We don't connect the heart attack we have in our 50s with the decades of 5-hour nights that preceded it. We don't link our struggle with anxiety to the chronic REM sleep deprivation we've been inflicting on ourselves. The cause and effect are separated by years, and so we fail to see the connection. This book is a bridge across that gap. It makes the invisible visible. It takes the long-term consequences and places them squarely in front of us, making them impossible to ignore. So, what can we do? The problem can feel overwhelming, embedded as it is in the very fabric of our society, our work culture, our school systems, our 24/7 digital lives. But change doesn't have to be revolutionary. It can start with small, simple, and profoundly effective actions. If I were to distill all the advice in this book down to a few core principles, they would be these. First, and most importantly, regularity. Go to bed at the same time and wake up at the same time every single day, no matter what. Yes, even on weekends. Your brain craves predictability. Regularity is king. It anchors your sleep and improves both its quantity and quality. If there is one thing you take away today, let it be this. Set a bedtime alarm on your phone. We have alarms to wake us up. It's time we had alarms to tell us it's time to wind down and go to sleep. Second, create a sleep sanctuary. Your bedroom should be cool, dark, and gadget-free. Think of it as a cave. We are biologically programmed to sleep in such an environment. Get blackout curtains. Turn your thermostat down. And, I know this one is hard, but charge your phone and other devices outside of the bedroom. Create a psychological and physical barrier between your waking, digital life and your restorative, sleeping life. And third, give yourself a chance to wind down. We don't have an on/off switch for sleep. It's more like landing a plane. It requires a slow, gradual descent. Don't check work emails or scroll through social media right up until the moment you turn out the lights. Give yourself an hour before bed to transition. Read a book, listen to calm music, meditate, or take a warm bath. Protect that last hour of your day as if your life depends on it, because, as we've learned, it does. This isn't about finding more hours in the day. It's about recognizing that the hours we spend asleep are the single most effective investment we can make in the hours we spend awake. It is the ultimate productivity hack, the ultimate wellness plan, and the ultimate creative muse. That was a summary of Why We Sleep by Matthew Walker. We've touched on the incredible science today, but I'll be honest with you, hearing me talk about it is one thing, experiencing the author's passion and the weight of his evidence firsthand is another. A summary can give you the map, but it can't replace the journey. The real power of this book lies in the quiet moments of reading, when a particular story or a staggering statistic lands in a way you didn't expect, and fundamentally shifts your perspective. This summary is your invitation to see if this journey is for you. If anything we've talked about today has struck a chord, I urge you to grab a copy. Reading it isn't just about learning, it's an experience that can genuinely change the way you value your health, your mind, and your time on this earth. The link to the book is in the description. Also, if you found this journey valuable, please show your support by hitting that like button and subscribing to the channel. That way, you won't miss our next deep dive into another life-changing book from the billionaire's bookshelf. Let's keep learning and growing together.